section of the delivery board meeting. We've had a closed section where we've been able to discuss on some more detailed performance-related information, and obviously we can't put that in the public domain for various reasons. But I do believe that we do need to have something for residents and the public to be able to view. Hence why we have this public section. We're joined by Trevor Rodinus, who's currently the Deputy Chief Constable, and will soon be the acting Chief Constable as of Monday, the 26th. And we're also joined by Dan, who is moving into our area from ERSU, the Eastern Region Special Operations Team, and he will be the temporary Deputy Chief Constable until when a substantive Chief Constable is in place. So yeah, well, thank you, gents, for joining us. Before we start, I want to just thank all is it 42 officers, Sean? 42? All the 42 officers from Bedfordshire Police who brilliantly supported the efforts through the mutual aid with the funeral of Her Majesty the Queen. They were a huge asset to the operation, and for a force the size of ours to have had that many go to contribute. And I think 2 were part of the actual processions, if I'm right, Trevor. I mean, yes, what a remarkable achievement. So thanks to all those officers who took part in the mutual aid, and also a huge thank you to the officers who stayed behind to keep the forts manned and policed accordingly. So thanks to all of them. We've got apologies from Wayne Humblestone, who's delivery manager in the office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, and Gary Forsyth, the Chief Constable, who's not able to join us today. As you can imagine, today's his last official day in the business, if I'm right, Trevor. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's his last official day on our actual sites. It's got some engagements over the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's meeting with a lot of the officers today, as you'd imagine, so he's not able to join us for the delivery board. But we've got someone representing him from the force executive here, so what we'll just do, we'll just go now into the main part of the meeting. I'm going to start with the Voice of the Public section. With someone just to highlight some of the things that residents have raised with me. Most commonly, by far, is the force control room and how long they're having to wait when they either go online or if they do 101 calls or 999. Can we get an update on what the force are doing to try and deal with this, please? Sean, Trevor?
Yeah, do you want me to start with that, Trevor, and then
you go first. I'll come in afterwards if that's okay.
Yeah, okay, Commissioner, and you know, 2 of our fundamental responsibilities to our public is that when the public contact us in times of need, namely ringing 999, we have to pick up that phone, and therefore we have prioritised our control room as an area of concern. We have, as you know, got a goal group, which is an internal mechanism to make sure that we've got that right focus on there and got support from across the organisation. Now, there's 2 elements to the challenges that we face there. One is in relation to recruitment and the numbers of people within the team. And we've got a number of vacancies across all different sections and component parts of the control room. Now, previously we have had some challenges in terms of filling those, but we've gone with a new revised recruitment campaign, and we're starting to see some real interest in those roles within there. But that will clearly take some time to transition, get those people in. We've got some assessment days this month, which should see some transition, and then get those people into the room through training and supplement those numbers. So we have significant gaps and vacancies. We do fill those with overtime, but there is light at the end of the tunnel in terms of recruitment. In terms of performance, that's the other challenge, the sheer demand of what comes into that room. And therefore, when you've got gaps in resourcing, you've got fewer people to meet that demand. in the last 2 months, in relation to 999 calls, we've seen the highest number of 999 calls in those 2 months than the previous 12 months. And what we've also seen in relation to 101 calls is in the last 2 months, the highest number of 101 calls since October 21. So that just illustrates the sheer demand that comes in. What I will say to you, Commissioner, and provide some reassurance to both yourself and the public, is that as a force, we are making month-on-month improvement in terms of answering calls, that call journey, and then responding to those incidents. What we acknowledge is that we still need to make further improvements in order to provide the best possible service to our public. So linked to that control room element is then our response to those incidents. And similarly, we are making some subtle changes to that part of the business in order to make sure that we're providing a holistic service to our public. Before I go into some of that, if you wish me to, I'll allow Trevor to step in with some other elements if he chooses to.
So what I would add, Commissioner, is we now have a real healthy pipeline of talented people wanting to come into the control room, which is really good. Clearly, when we are carrying abstractions to bring people in, to train them and to put them alongside operators who are already under quite a bit of pressure, it needs to be sequenced. So we can't just bring loads of people in all together. We need to sort of smooth that over a timeline that is manageable. And so the experience for those being trained is one where they actually want to come and stay. We've made a number of other changes to the roles and role profiles in there, so people know what their role is, that there is more now training, support. We've got a bigger focus. We've increased the amount of roles that are focused on that aspect of it, and there are development opportunities in there as well. So there's a lot that's been done around well-being. We also have made, through negotiation with staff, changes to the duty times essentially of individuals in there, so which is more closely aligned to demand, particularly where people, it's a place where you can have flexible working arrangements, because we can accommodate part-time in that environment, but we just need to align the workforce to the right times of day when we expect the demand from the public. We're also having some technology changes in there, which will provide a degree of automation, which wasn't there in the past. And this is kind of, we're leading the way in terms of that. But as Sian said, we have experienced record demand. We do expect demand to continue to grow, and therefore it will remain a priority for us. And what we are intending to do is it's an area where we will tolerate going over establishment if necessary, because we want to ensure that we get the right number of people. It is not an immediate fix because it takes time to get those skills. But what I would also say is the focus on the individuals and their well-being in that room. There is a tangible change in that room in terms of how it feels. And I think that is really important to getting the resourcing to right over time. So it feels like it's going in the right direction. It isn't a switch you can just click overnight. And this isn't unique to Bedfordshire. It is a national pressure that policing is experiencing. And certainly we get calls that sometime as the last sort of agency of resort, which ordinarily might not be the best place to receive those calls. So that is a policing challenge, but one we are focused on, and it's an area, just to reassure you, that we are prioritising as an equal priority to bringing in the uplift of officers that we need to do also during the course of this year.
And do you know what proportion of these increasing demand is involve things like mental health, for example, or calls that really shouldn't be police calls that are coming through to 999 or 101? Because obviously, I mean, I think what's the number now that we've got for August, for calls in August and July?
13,000 calls, I think.
So 13,000 in July and 12,000 in August. And have we ever had 13,000 before?
So 13,000 is a record number.
Yeah.
In answer to your call about mental health, there is an absolute rise on the demand of public services in relation to mental health, certainly since post-COVID. Obviously, that is a system challenge, but nevertheless, we have a mental health practitioner that sits in our control room to support that. And as you know, we're committed to mental health street triage, along with mental health practitioners and the ambulance service that we provide to also sort of specialise in that demand. But there is clearly a gap in mental health provision, and which overspills to policing, if you like, as the agency of last resort.
No, so I believe there's a meeting that's scheduled for me to have a conversation with some of the local authorities around the and ELFT, the East London Health Foundation Trust, to talk about mental health provision and what we can do together to alleviate the burden on each other and to support the public who might be going through a mental health crisis without them having to come into the care of the police. So I'll be able to update you and the public on that once we have that meeting. The other thing I wanted to ask about before I step out of the meeting, and I think Anna will be able to continue with the rest of the agenda, and hopefully I'll be able to join you back afterwards, is around what the force is doing around the retention of student officers. I know that they're putting some very, very interesting plans in place, but I mean, can I get an update on that, please?
Yes, Commissioner. So, as you know, we've got probably 310 student officers at the moment, and that's going to increase as we go forward. We meet with all the student officers, we listen to the student officers. It's important that we focus around providing a service and a system internally that supports them, both in terms of their skills, experience, but also their well-being. So we've made some subtle changes to our operating model in the sense that we are going to bring together our response investigation team and our response function, and they will be patrol teams. But then we're also going to start on the 3rd of October, a student hub. Now that will really focus on the students, and that will be made up of dedicated resources, including an inspector, sergeants, and dedicated tutor constables. So new students will spend that time, once they come out of the classroom, in that student hub, and they will be tutored in line with patrol teams, but have some flexibility in order to gain those skills and that experience that they require. Once they come out of that environment, they will join the patrol teams and spend the rest of their time within that area, other than shortened attachments which fall in line with their academic requirements. So they'll work within a patrol team throughout that time, but only leave to support their ongoing learning.
Okay. So, I mean, in practical terms, what could they be doing? I mean, if they're not in a classroom, what would they be doing? So
once they come out of the classroom,
yes, what would you expect them to be doing? What kind of duties would you expect them to be doing?
Yeah, they'll be doing similar to our patrol teams. They'll be able to respond to incidents. They'll be able to investigate crime, but also they'll get some real core skills in terms of foot patrol in some of those high harm and hotspot areas, because that will give them that experience and exposure to policing.
Right. I really look forward to seeing how the student hub unfolds. I mean, as you've shared in the past, you know, student officers, they really need that supervision and that support. So I'm really pleased with the work that you're doing in creating this, and I look forward to hearing more of the outcomes that's being achieved, and especially the opportunity for them to do foot patrols as well. That would be excellent. That would be excellent. Trevor, did you want to come into this before I step out? And then we've got Anna on now.
No, I mean, obviously the reality of the situation is, of a force of 1,400 officers, 400 are going to be students. That is a very big proportion, and we've had to make this change to enable their journey into policing to be successful. But you know, as you rightly highlight, it presents an opportunity to increase visible policing in certain areas of our community where I suggest the community would welcome that. But then the other changes that we've made have been necessary so we can free up the resource to actually be the tutors that they need. So they're big changes for the force, which we will work through, but they're necessary, and hopefully it will stand as well to support those students to be successful substantive officers in due course. You're on mute, Anna.
So the Commissioner's had to step out, so I'm going to take us through the rest of the agenda, and we're going to make an agenda change because the Commissioner's not going to be here for this part. So we're going to move to 9.1, which is you, Trevor, and then we're going to move 10.1 into the next meeting. We'll have a brief update from Phil on 10.2. So I'm hopeful that you're all in agreement with that. So Trevor, can I ask you to walk us through your update report, please?
Of course, and just to kind of, you know, conscious this part of the meeting is a public meeting, just in terms of context, one of the things we agreed to do together was to map all the activity that the force is doing alongside the Police and Crime Commissioner's plan. And that's what we've obviously been doing for the last few meetings. So today I'm going to provide an update against priority 3 of the Commissioner's plan, which is tackling the causes of crime and breaking the cycle of offending, and we'll demonstrate hopefully all the things we were doing. Now, what I would say is I have in front of me quite a lengthy report, and I am not going to read that report out in full. I will draw out some key headlines and take any questions, Anna, but clearly that report has been provided to yourselves. There is one correction I just need to make in it as well that I've noticed whilst preparing. So in essence, we have our annual plan and our control strategy, and in that we have improved the management of offenders and reduce crime and protect people from harm, which directly relates to the plan. In terms of managing offenders, we use the active risk management system. So we use the approved risk assessment tool for managing offenders. We also have the ways we tackle high harm repeat offenders. So we have the felonious few, which includes people who are responsible for serious acquisitive crime and other significant crimes that harm communities. And we also have separate processes for both domestic abuse and burglary. We have a gang mapping process, which is a kind of 4P response. So that's prevent, protect and prepare and pursue those perpetrators, which we use, an organised crime group mapping. And we have here in Bedfordshire integrated offender management, which is supported by U-Turn Futures. There's only ourselves and Hertfordshire who use that system, and our kind of end of year integrated offender management report shows real improvement and sustained good performance. What I would draw our attention back to is what the HMIC RFRS inspection into Bedfordshire Police found in terms of managing offenders. So we were graded as outstanding for this area. It's obviously something we're really proud about and pleased. You know, it's a representation of the hard work that our staff have put into this area. And there's only one other force that's achieved that grading. A couple of key things the HMIC said. Integrated offender management is reducing offending and its cost to society. Evidence demonstrates the force's approach to managing offenders is effective. Online child abuse investigations are timely and thorough. Online child abuse investigations are supported by an impressive digital forensics capability. The force is effective at managing the risk posed by the most dangerous offenders, and the force uses technology effectively to support its management of registered sex offenders. And should note the Commissioner's supported us with that. It's clearly funded a capability, a mobile capability that we use to examine those kind of devices. There's a clear policy for addressing outstanding suspects, and the force prioritises domestic abuse suspects. The other thing the HMIC drew out as good practice was how we risk assess patients with mental health conditions who are due to be released from hospitals in the same way that we do individuals who are going to be released from prisons through the multi-agency arrangements. In terms of our offender management and demand of workforce assessment, you know, whilst this is a pretty positive assessment, I should highlight that our offender managers' caseloads are notably high. So the national average is about 50 per officer. We're currently at 62.5. So this is an area of demand which I believe will continue to grow, and therefore we have to assess really carefully because of our ability to maintain these standards and the pressure that it puts on our staff who are managing high-risk individuals. Demand is only expected to increase in the medium term, which is our own assessment. So we're currently, out of an establishment of 39 officers, we've currently got just over 33 full-time equivalents doing that work, so about 85 or 86%. So that is a challenge and an area of focus. In terms of the crime prevention side of things, we have a small team of 3 DOCOs, we call them, so they're design out crime officers. So they provide links with the local community, links to local businesses, and put mitigations in place for high demand locations. And we also have local partnership collaborations which work on problem solving. So we've appointed a dedicated DCI to lead strategic partnership work focused on independent case reviews. So that's again aimed at improving our joint work on our information sharing, which again is greatly improved. We've got a bespoke cross-agency training package being prepared to build a consistent understanding across all workers in all sectors we work with around vulnerability. We have reduced repeat missing episodes, so we've got in our force team focus on that, and we increased the remit of our CSE team, so they're now the missing and child exploitation team. We have a real focus here in Bedfordshire on women in the criminal justice system. So we're piloting a diversion scheme, which is an attempt to divert women accused of crime before arrest to relevant partnership and third sector support, as we have noticed a trend of females coming into the custody sort of system and then ending up with no outcome. So there's definitely an area for a focus to prevent that. We've got the managing of domestic abuse perpetrators process that was set up as part of the multi-agency risk assessments, and we're doing a lot of work with the local prison and in a number of areas, but particularly we focus on reducing drug use and reducing reoffending. There is a section in the report, Anna, on the VERU. I'm not going to read out the VERU because I think we've covered that here in this part of the meeting before, and you know, rightly we promote the work of the fantastic work the VERU does. The only thing I would say is we now have Kimberly Lamb back from attachment to the Home Office, you know, with 3 years of funding in that area, who's really, I'm confident it'll take the VERU from strength to strength. And then we produce a number of products. Again, don't go into the detail, but products that help us understand risk and help us manage offenders, but also reduce crime. So the violence against women and girls assessment, on neighbourhood crime, our rape and serious sexual offences, terms of reference, domestic abuse, and our serious and organised crime local profile. Again, I would just highlight, we have a dedicated Home Office funding to give us a guns and gangs team, which focus on individuals, high threat individuals in that threat area. We also have a funded dedicated team looking at the response to Operation Venetic. That was, you will recall, the infiltration of the EncroChat network that found a lot of organised crime criminals across the country that policing didn't previously know about, but we had a disproportionate impact in Bedfordshire and made the case successfully to have a dedicated team that have done some brilliant results. In fact, they were recently made Team of the Year, our awards. We are fully committed, not just as Bedfordshire Police, but as PAM Bedfordshire cross-agency approach to the drug strategy, the 10-year drug strategy. We've got PAM Bedfordshire governance that's been set up, and a real, I'm confident, collective effort in relation to our county-wide approach to drugs. We have the forces working with Cambridge University Centre for Evidence-Based Policing on hotspot alarm tools. So we have Op Rowan that puts visible policing in areas that analysis says if you put visible policing there, you will greatly reduce crime. And that's kind of a national best practice piece of academic research that's being looked at. And we have the neighbourhood safeguarding. Now, we are a pilot force, one of 8 forces piloting what is called clear, hold, build. That's military terminology for a methodology of clearing the ground, holding it and building it in a sort of partnership way. We're currently deploying that in the Dallow area of Luton, and that's branded as Dallow Cares, and that is policing have a significant role to play in that, but so do our partners, and that is really sort of starting to look like a successful pilot of that, which we're looking to expand out into Central Beds and Bedford. But just to give you a flavour, the policing part of that made 11 arrests, seized over 1,000 drug deals, over £2,500 in cash, and a number of drug deal phones taken off. And then we've worked with the mayor and other partners to deliver community engagement events on knife crime, drug crime, and diversion of young people away from crime. So that's a really positive initiative, again, which we might want to focus on separately in another meeting. But that is a quick run through of the headlines, Anna, but happy to take any questions on that.
Thanks, Trevor. And I think you actually have covered quite a lot of the Commissioner's questions within that. I just wondered if you could talk us through maintaining high standards, and particularly when HMIC FRS come in with the kind of grading that we receive for managing offenders in the community. What are you doing to ensure that those really high standards that are now national exemplars of best practice, what are you doing to ensure that we're maintaining those?
Well, clearly we've got pressures across the whole organisation in terms of resourcing. It's not necessarily the numbers of people, it's the numbers of people in the right places with the right skills. Sian outlined, if you kind of follow this all the way through the force, the changes that Sian described earlier with how we change our response function, that provides a degree of upskilling of people into the very early stages of investigation. That makes then for some investigation to be more attractive. So we'll see more people going into the more core crime areas, and then we draw resources into specialised units such as offender management from those wider crime areas. So firstly, I think there's foundations there to ensure there's a pipeline of talent moving through the organisation. Second bit is a real focus, as you've just described, on understanding our demand, so we can constantly make sure we have the right resource in the right places. And we're about to embark on our priority-based budgeting. A lot of people think that's about cuts. It isn't. It's about service levels and making sure the resources in the right places, which starts next week. So we will be doing that, and we will consider offender management within that. And clearly, we've outlined some best practice, but at the time of the visit, there were still some things that were in the sort of infancy. So, we now use the lie detector capability that we have to help us manage and determine the risk of offenders. That's now embedded in the force and is a capability we're using. So we're not just sitting back on a grading, Anna, if that gives you reassurance. We're looking at what next, what's the good practice that we can use. And in the future, I think we'll be able to make much better use of our data to help us do that as well.
Thank you. Just wanted to extend my thanks and the thanks from the Commissioner to Sian for helping with rearranging some of the governance arrangements in order that we can successfully implement that 10-year drug strategy. It is always complex with county-wide initiatives and getting all partners on board. So many thanks for your support with that, Sian.
And Anna, just on that, I said there was a correction to the paper. There's a line, I forget which section it's in, but it says that we made a bid to the Home Office in August. We haven't made a bid to the Home Office in August around the 10-year drug strategy. We are looking at what a bid might look like if there is funding available for us to. So I wouldn't want to mislead either the public or yourselves. But clearly, if there is an opportunity, we will seek to take it as we've done with other funding arrangements.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to 10.2. Phil, could you give us an update on the community policing model and the establishment thereof?
Yeah, I'll be really brief because Sean will give an update around the engagement and the sort of priority setting from local, our local public and ASB problem solving next time round. But in terms of the numbers in community policing, at the moment we have 148 people, that's officers and PCSOs in community policing. 122 of those are in our community hubs, our 6 community hubs. And as you'll be aware, we have said that we will try and maintain numbers in those hubs at 95% of establishment. We're currently at 90%, but we have 5 people coming into those roles over the next couple of months, which will bring that up to 95%. In terms of the vacancies, the majority of those vacancies are in our 2 Luton hubs. Central Beds hubs are at 98% of establishment, and Bedford Boroughs hubs are at 95%. So the majority of those vacancies are in Luton, and those 5 people that coming in will be going into the Luton hubs.
Thanks, Phil. Just as a bit of a reminder for anybody that's watching, can you just remind people where those community hubs are?
Yeah, so we have 2 in Bedford. One is a rural, one is in the town centre. Central North, which is in, 2 in Central, 1 in North and the 1 in the South. And then we have a Luton South and a Luton North hub. Thank you.
We are going to move that other report because it is something that the Commissioner's got quite a lot of things that he wants to cover as a result of it. So we're going to move that one. The next agenda, so items for October, unless anybody's got anything else that they want to add in at this point. I'm going to take silence as a no. So for October, we have had some requests to update people on the progress with the Violence Against Women and Girls Action Plan and the various strands of work that are going on within the force and the OPCC and with colleagues in our partner agencies as well. So we're going to put that on the October agenda. And also, Sean, we've got here a VCOP compliance paper. You happy that we have that on the agenda for October?
Yeah, more than happy with that. Just while I've got airtime, as you know, Anna, we as a force are really promoting male violence against women and girls. So appreciate others may not, but if there's any reference to what the force is doing, if we could include male violence against women and girls, please.
I'm sure that that will come out in the October meeting, and we can perhaps have a discussion around why that is so important to the force and draw on some of the data and case studies that you'll be able to discuss. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring this part of the meeting to a close. We have said that in the first part of the meeting, we would update everybody on where we're at with the race action plan. So again, if we're content that that is something that we can put forward for next month, I know there's been a lot of work that has happened at national level and within forces. So we again have had a couple of questions about that we can roll forward. One of the final issues that I just want to ask people to reflect on, and it is in the published part of this meeting, is the update and the detail on the precept deliverables. I know that we're in that time of year where we start to think about the look back and also the look forward. So there are some bullet points there on the end of the suggested agenda for October that the Commissioner is really keen that are covered. Okay, Phil's nodding. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for Trevor. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I should have come in for a bit of AOB before you close the meeting if I can.
Yep. Okay,
2 things. One is what I should have mentioned when we were talking about the control room, and I just want to get this bit in, is the reason, one of the main reasons why we're wrestling with vacancies there is because people leave the control room to join the police, to join us, which is a good thing because they become better police officers because of it. So we need to recognise that that isn't a problem. It's a byproduct of an entry pathway into policing, which I think is important to record. And they're better police officers, by the way, for that experience. The other thing I just wanted to also say, and I know the Commissioner isn't here, and I'm sure if he was, he would mention it, is the Chief Constable's last day in the force, and I do think we should just reflect on and record it formally, you know, that the service that he's provided to Bedfordshire Police is certainly in a better place than it was when he started as the Chief 3 years ago, and I'm sure the Commissioner would want us to ensure that we kind of recognise that and give thanks to his service to the public of Bedfordshire, and I know he will be sorely missed by the officers and staff that work for us.
I'm sure over the next few days, the Commissioner will be echoing exactly those words. As Gary says, his goodbyes to colleagues, not only around the force, but with our partners as well. He, as you say, has been part of the senior leadership team within Bedfordshire for a few years now, and has taken Bedfordshire to a new level of performance. So the Commissioner would most definitely echo what you have said, Trevor.
Thank you.
If nobody has anything else, I'm going to call this meeting to an end, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.